Hey guys, I'm once again joined by my friend Jeremy, and we're continuing and concluding our reviews on Universal's Mummy series with the 1955 horror comedy Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy. Now, this is the sixth film of Universal's Mummy series and serves as a parody on the series, and this is also part of a series of horror comedies that comedians Abbott and Lou Costello starting in the late 40s and early 50s that spoofed the Universal monsters. This series also included Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, Abbott and Costello Meet Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and Abbott and Costello Meet the Invisible Man. So what do you think of Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy?
Oh, it's a nice movie. It's pretty funny. Abbott and Costello are always great to watch.
Oh yeah. I enjoyed this. I mean, it's nowhere near as good as something like Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, but no, it was an enjoyable little comedy film, I think. So the plot of the movie is we follow Abbott and Costello basically playing themselves. If you watch the credits, their characters are credited as Pete and Freddy, yet if you actually watch the movie, they refer to themselves as Abbott and Costello in the movie itself, so they're basically playing themselves, but somehow they get stranded in Egypt. And basically in the film, they get caught up in this plot involving a cult that worships this ancient mummy called Klaris, and Klaris is actually alive. Like, the cult has the ability to keep Klaris alive. And this American archaeologist ends up stealing Klaris, so the cult ends up killing the archaeologist, and Abbott and Costello end up getting accused of the crime because they're basically in the wrong place at the wrong time, and they also make some very stupid decisions that end up getting themselves in trouble. Meanwhile, there's also a group of thieves who are trying to steal this medallion that came off Klaris, and ridiculous shenanigans ensue. The plot is a little all over the place, but again, it is a really fun movie. My one issue with it, though, is I do kind of wish the mummy was in it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because he's really only in, he's in it briefly in the beginning, and then towards the end, but a lot of the movie is, really just about Abbott and Costello they have this medallion, and, these, thieves are trying to get their hands on the medallion. A lot of the movie kind of focuses on that.
Klaris is, he's pretty much sidelined for most of the movie.
Yeah.
Up close, it doesn't even look like he's wrapped in bandages.
No, it's basically just a costume that clearly went over him, that's kind of textured to look like bandages, and at one point I even saw, the zipper on the costume. Now, I read this on Wikipedia, so take this with a grain of salt, but supposedly the mummy Klaris from this movie is actually the cousin of Karis, the mummy from the last few Mummy movies. I'm not sure if that's actually true or not. I mean, I guess you could have that interpretation if you want, but it's never brought up in the movie. Now, Klaris was played by stuntman Eddie Parker. But Abbott and Lou Costello were absolutely brilliant comedians, and even if the plot is a little, all over the place, they save it just by their chemistry with each other, and just some of the gags in this movie are so freaking hilarious. Granted, they do kind of repeat some gags that I've seen before in other Abbott and Costello movies, you remember the scene in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein where they're being chased by the Frankenstein monster, and then they go into the room, they close the door, they put, the bed in front of the door, and then the monster just opens the door because it opens on the other side. They repeat that same gag, only it's with these thieves going after them, but it's more or less the same. There's a scene where, they have to dig a hole, and then they get into this whole spiel about, a shovel and a pick, but it's similar to the whole who's on first thing, where it's a play on words and all that. So again, they do kind of repeat some gags from other films, but it's a very enjoyable film. If you are a fan of Abbott and Costello, and if you're a fan of the Universal monster films, I would say check this out.
Yeah, so would I. There's also a fake shot of a giant iguana, which clearly they just... How do I put this? I mean, it just looks so fake. They superimposed an image of a regular iguana onto the screen to make it appear huge.
Mm-hmm. No, it's not great, but it's a fun movie. I would recommend it.
Yeah, so would I.
So, that concludes our series of reviews on Universal's Mummy series. There were other Mummy movies that came after this, like Hammer did their remake of The Mummy, then in the 90s you had the Brendan Fraser version of The Mummy, which spawned its own little franchise, and of course you had that god-awful 2017 remake with Tom Cruise. I'm only reviewing the original Universal Mummy series for this year's Horror Month. But my next review for Horror Month will be on the 1980 Italian horror film City of the Living Dead. So stay tuned for that review, and bye.